Okay, good. Whoopsie. All right. So this is for Arts 130, and we are going to look at a very basic printmaking project. Printmaking projects are fantastic because students can make multiples of something and then trade them with each other. I've done things like in some cases of having students make one print for everybody in the class, and then they all trade a print. You can do note cards with this. You can do make a paper quilt by putting everybody's work together in one big, huge sheet, taping it together from the back. So it can be a really good group project. And it is super simple to do. So usually after frottage, what I usually do is I do styrofoam printmaking. So I have here, my super good samples are at school, still in my famous cabinet, which I swear I'm going to get to. But I just want you to get the idea. This is one I did when we were talking about note cards. And what a styrofoam print is, it's nothing other than a tray, a piece of styrofoam that you've incised with a pencil. You don't want a super sharp pencil. You want a pencil that's going to be a little dull. You could also use a ballpoint pen, but it sometimes snags. And you don't use huge areas for shading. You use dots and little lines. It's a linear process. When we do it, the norm, well, actually what you're going to do today, it's a backwards process. So you make your plate like this, the scalloped edges here, but when you ink it and print it and then lift it up, the scalloped edge is opposite. So that's how printing most often works with things like etchings and lithographs. So that's what we're going to kind of think about today. All right, and you print on fairly thin paper because you really want the image to get through. This is color, what is it called? Color guard paper. It's the paper used for the color class, color aid paper. That's what it is. All right, here, this is from a student a couple semesters ago, and here's a print from it. And I wouldn't really say it's the world's best print because you can see some of the lines have filled in with the ink. So it's not the world's best. Here's a caveat. When you're printing, you really want to think about the color of the paper because this is the great disappearing rose. You can hardly see it because it's there, but you can hardly see it because the intensity of the two colors is too similar. So I just wanted to show you that. Here's two more. I didn't really have very good examples, and I apologize for that. But again, it's because they're all in my cabinet. This is like a mandala. This is a better print in terms of you can see the design as well, and you've got kind of the nice corner. This is a print where the artist did not really ink all the way around the edges, and I'm going to show you a little bit about how to do that. Now, we're not doing this project. I am just going to show it to you so that if ever we get together again and we're not online, you are going to understand it. So I get styrofoam neat trays from Dick Blick. You can get them from most art stores. You can get them from a grocery store. If you go over to the neat department and you tell them you're a teacher, they'll give you a whole stack of these. You try to get them that don't have, like, see, you'll see this is a bit of a raised because it's got a brand name in the back here, but I'm not going to worry about that. I don't think it's going to print too much. So one of the first things you have to do when you get a tray is make sure that you cut the lip away, because anything, even a slightly raised edge, is going to print. So let's say I do a bad job of this side. I just want you to see what a bad job looks like. Now, can you see that this is raised here? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. That will print and give you a very bad print. It's going to prevent the edge from being really beautiful. So what we want to do is you want to go see. Okay, we want to make sure that you cut inside enough. I do these usually on the paper cutter. I just go bang, 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 bang. Right now I'm just eyeballing it. Now Styrofoam is so amenable to anything. You could also make a shape. So you could have the students make shapes of animals or whatever they wanted to make a shape of if you were going to be doing that. So the lesson plan that I'm giving you says here, it's an adaptation, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be more using it as a pattern stamp using markers, which strangely work okay. It's not the world's best, but it works. So what I've done is I've scratched out, this is on Blackboard, by the way. I've scratched out the things that you're not using at home, but you can still read through them to sort of see what we normally would do. So I'm going to go ahead and do this first, but what you want to do is, first of all, have a theme. So you could do all kinds of things. What I want to be when I grow up, a pet I wish I had, women in history, plants of the world, or whatever. I'll just do some kind of, well, somebody give me a theme, and I'll just invent something. You want me to make a cat, a fantasy animal, a plant? What do you want? Hello, somebody. Anybody?
Thinking. We're here.
How about an animal?
Flower ranunculus.
A flower what?
The ranunculus.
A flower with what?
The flower is called the ranunculus.
Okay, I don't know what a ranunculus is. What is a ranunculus?
It's a really beautiful flower. I don't know, lilies.
A ranunculus. I'm gonna do a Julia Healy flower then. Okay, so you could do a botanical theme. That would not be a bad thing. Now, when you teach this with kids, you don't go straight into the plate. You have them make a sketch. You have them maybe make more than one sketch. For the interest of time, I'm going to just move into this. So I'm just going to start up here. I did get my plants. I may not have gotten your grades online too much this week, but I did manage to get my castor beans started. I get these seeds every year that are so incredible, and I end up with like 20-foot high tropical looking plants from the tiniest little seeds. The thing is, you can't buy these anywhere. So I've started them. They're in my dining room, getting ready. Now, when you draw on here, you really want the students, you don't want them to scratch it, but you want them to be able to feel the little ribbing. Because I tell them that the ink, we're trying to fool the ink, and the ink will not be able to get down into the gullies. Ha, ha, ha. It's sort of like a certain amount of silliness. I guess grown-ups do too sometimes. But anyway, so that helps them remember that they're going to trick the ink, and so on and so forth. Sometimes it gives you a little bit of a time. It doesn't, the pencil does not want to go, where you want it to. I'm going to make a thing. Oh, I should have done an insect. Well, you know that we're going to get all these locusts, right? These cicadas in a month. that have been underground for 17 years. Now with this, we can't color that in, so but you can polka dot things. You know, that will give us some texture. And what we do with your things, you may want that. Now I know this is no ranunculus, Esther, but hey, I'm just gonna fill the background in a little to kind of make it just a little more dense. The important thing here is just that you understand the process and so on. If you happen to have Speedball printmaking ink and a brayer, you can just do this instead of the other, what I'm going to show you in a minute. Whoa, squeak, squeak, squeak. All right. Stems are very rarely straight, I'd like to point out. A lot of people just always make just a perfect stem, straight, whatever. It's really not the case. And leaves come out from behind, and you know they're not always symmetrical. Nature sometimes has a raw side to it. Now you can put a little bit of a background stuff here and there if you want. Now because it's a backwards process, letters, numbers, let's say you want to put something in here. That would be, oh, even just so you could like signing your initials. You got to make them backwards, because if you don't make them backwards, you're going to be very, very sad when we get to the printing part. Okay, now this is a little dull, but I think it'll work fine. I'm going to just cut down this side because I think I have too much space on that. I could put a few little things in for the background, but I'm not going to because I want to just kind of get into this. So I'm confident that I have enough here that I think it'll work. Obviously, if it turns out that I don't, you can draw back into it. Now, when we print this, I usually have the students draw one day, one class, and then the next class we, maybe two classes we print. And these can be washed off because the ink is water soluble. I think I'm going to use the pink for this because since it's a flower, I also have orange, but I think I'll use the pink. And one little handy hint, these are just like little simple plexiglass trays. You can also use anything that's smooth. You could use glass, but I don't really like the glass. But I put tape here, which just gives the children a little bit of a guideline where they want to keep the ink when they're rolling it out. The actual tape is on the back side, so this is really smooth on this side. This is Speedball ink. It's like at least 2 years old, but I think it'll work fine. And comes in all kinds of different colors. This is magenta. So here we go. Sort of comes out like toothpaste. I let the students do their own inking, but I do show them how to do this. You know. I'm going to protect my work area here. And actually, I'm personally, you can't see me, but I'm going to stand up. Now, you don't want too much ink. You don't want too little. This is a little on the gooey side. I wanted you to hear what's called kissing, but I'm going to go ahead and start because the very first print you make is usually the hardest. So what you want to do is when you lay the ink on, you want to kind of go up at the end. Kind of gives it, doesn't make an edge that way along the. Let's see, this tray has a little nick in the corner, so can't do anything about that, but when I get the print, I can. Now, on here, this is now right about what you want. And you get a little sound. I don't know if you can quite hear it. That's called kissing. The kids think that's very funny. But you don't want too much, you don't want too little. And as I say, the first one is the hardest. Now, to print this, you want thin paper. And you teach the students to put the brayer down like this. Softer brayers work the best. And I gave everybody lots of different colors of paper. So I'm going to use yellow because I think that'll be nice contrast here. I'm going to put a new piece of paper down here. Okay. So there's I eyeball it, but you know, true printmakers measure everything. And one of the handy secrets is that, okay, you flip it over because you want your hand to be in contact, close contact with the plate, not the other way around. You don't want to do the plate. Hold on, I got to admit somebody in here. Okay. And don't take too long. One of the handy hints is to, here we go. So the first one is not super great, but it's okay. There you see it. The cheating I was telling you about goes like this. You can just take your finger and kind of do that if you want. But I kind of think maybe the embossing in the center is kind of interfering because I'm getting a little less contact. But the second print probably will be better. I'll do one more really fast so you can sort of see how that goes. But I only allow one color per class so that they're not washing the trays off. And if they get all watery, they really make a mess of a print. So, and I have all the students write their names on their papers ahead of time. So they've got their paper, they're ready, set to go. I'll use a different color this time. Re-ink it. So you could make, you know, 50 or 100 of these if you wanted to. It really does teach the printmaking process. My ink seems to be a little on the runny side. It's okay. Here we are. Again, we're going to eyeball it. Turn it over. I'm going to really make sure I get that center a little bit better. And because this is water soluble, you can't get water on this. So when we glue it, you have to use a glue stick, not Elmer's. There's a whole lot of caveats with it that you learn as you go. I usually have the students frame one if they can. Yeah, see, that center is a problem because of that. The embossing is so heavy. It just happens to be where my design is a little bit, whatever. So we can kind of just do that just to kind of give you a little bit better of an idea. Okay, so that is printing with ink, which we're not going to do. Does anybody have any questions about that?
No, thank you. It looks like fun.
Okay, that's just so that we have some sense of.
It makes me almost want to make like a fake wallpaper.
A fake what?
Wallpaper, just like make a stamp and just go over my whole wall.
You know, I did have a girl, a 6th grader many years ago, who made a border with this all the way around her bedroom. Her parents let her hang it up. But you know, it's not water soluble. it's water soluble, so you can't wash it or anything. You just have to be careful with it. It'll stick together as it dries. You know, you have to make sure that it dries fully. Okay, so we're going to instead make stamps. And I just thought we'd make a pattern. Obviously, if you can figure out any other way of doing this. I had made a sample earlier, and I cannot for the life of me find it. I think it kind of might have found its way into the garbage, but no matter. I want to show you anyway. I gave everybody one tray in 130 in your box. So you can do as many as you want. You don't have to make them, don't make them too big, but don't make them too small. This is like a fine size or even a little bigger. And if you want to, you can make a shape. I'm suggesting you probably should draw what you're going to do first so that you have an idea, you know, because there's a finite amount of how much tray everybody has. So if you wanted, you could do them the same size or different, and you can, you know, you can cut them on the edge and give them kind of a wacky shape if you want. My goal for you is just that you're gonna get a sense of how to do this. I don't particularly like that shape, but anyway, there you have a shape. I'm gonna work on this one, I think. So it's the same idea where you're going to just draw into it, and then we're going to make a pattern on paper. You can use the regular white drawing paper for this. You don't need to use the oak tag for this. You could also use the bond copy paper. I think I'm just going to go like that. Let's see here. This is very basic. This looks like just a spirally concentric circle idea. All right, so let's just say that's my thing. Here's what I've come up with for you, and I hope it works for everybody. I gave you some markers. Oh, also one other thing. I gave everybody at least one wine cork. I don't know whether you're going to need it, but the reason I did was because I had a student. Actually, it wasn't a student. It was an art teacher who worked in a program, and she developed making stamps. She was using cardboard, and she would just like tape them on the back like that for stamps. And I thought it was so brilliant. I don't know that it's going to work that well for what we want to do, but I just wanted to give you the cork to show you that, so that if ever you do make stamps that you actually would stamp on, this will remind you of a very cool, inexpensive way to do that. But I kind of think we can just press down and probably get a good reaction. I might want to turn it around just the way I did the other one. All right, so these are Crayola markers. They're classic markers. And this is completely unorthodox. I decided the watercolors didn't work as well. And even this is a little sketchy. But bear with me, because it's the best I can do, considering that we don't have any brayers. Brayers are about $15 each, and the ink is about $6. So it would have added so much money onto your supplies. I just couldn't do it. I felt like, nope, that's not happening. So I'm going to just start here. You might want to just play with this and see how it goes. It's not going to be as bright or as gorgeous as, but it is going to be a print. Nonetheless, it's a print. And all I'm asking you to do is to create a pattern. And we're going to do one other thing while we're at it, but let me just try a different color. Now, depending on what colors I've given you, because the colors were very random, I also couldn't quite afford to give everybody a full set of markers. So I tried to give everybody a couple really interesting colors and a couple that or maybe just a little less interesting, but you know, you'll find what you can find. Do not use permanent markers for this. It won't work. So I'm going to just go like this to make a different color. Now again, you'll see that I'm turning it over to kind of get the contact with it. And there you have it. So you can do that. I'm not expecting great art out of this. What I'm expecting is for you just to understand styrofoam. And you can use more than one, you know, you could use several and then just kind of create a pattern. Then the next idea is, I also gave you this little packet of sponge brushes, stampers. 4 of these. These work really, really well, and you can kind of get them wet a little and wash them. I'm going to just dampen it a bit because when it's damp, I think it'll give us a. So I just dampened it a bit. It's not so damp that it's gonna, whatever, drip all over everything. I think let's go into some glue here. And again, it's the same thing. Now, if you wanted to risk it, you could use your acrylics with these, but acrylics will dry really fast and they might gum it up. So I didn't really want to 100% suggest that, but there we go. Let's just try to stamp it and see what happens. Well, that's not as good as I had hoped. Maybe I have to use one of the smaller ones. Let's try it. Or maybe okay, maybe the wetting it was not a good idea. Plunk that in. Let's just try one that's not. Maybe the marker is a little on the dry side. That's probably also a little. We'll go with purple. I don't know. But it's a pretty unusual use of markers. And while I have your attention, I'm going to give you a funny story. If you already had 130, you already probably heard this story. See, that's a little bit better. But I was testing it earlier with the smaller one. You know, I think you know you're going to be able to figure out what works best, what doesn't. So play if you're going to use these spongy things, play with them before you do it, because obviously they're not. You can't 100% control them. They're very dark on the inside. I mean, I've seen worse things in my life, but I'm not super in love. What I did earlier was I was making like a flower. I was using the pink. Let's see if this will cooperate. Now this one I didn't wet at all. Let's see if it will cooperate. Yeah. Okay, I think you have to recharge it every single time. All right, so I leave it to you if you want to use the stamps. Obviously, if you have a stamp pad, these will work great on a stamp pad. And they would work, also very good with temper or a paint that wouldn't necessarily start drying. But if we had like our normal printmaking ink, which I have over here, don't I? It's not too dry. Anyway, so you just get like a brighter color, but I think that the printmaking ink is kind of dry. But one thing I want to say about markers is I once had a cup of tea, and I had kids coming in for something called lunch club. Whenever there was inclement weather, the children would come in for something called lunch club, and I would get an extra couple classes. Not that I needed them, but I got them. And so I had a cup of tea, and when I went down, somebody had made a drawing with markers. And when I was putting it on the drying rack, I spit on it by mistake. And when you spit on Crayola markers, classic markers, man, it's beautiful. So we then just started doing that on purpose. So sometimes spitting on markers can be a lesson plan. So your project is to just make me a pattern, and as I say, you could also use your colored papers, if you want to, and consider this sort of like a fun thing, more like an exploration. I'm not in this case looking for great art. I'm looking for you to understand how to make prints in very simple ways. I'm a little disappointed with how these are working out, but I'm very happy with how this worked out. I think that's a very, very simple, beautiful print.
So Professor, are we supposed to do the stamp with the styrofoam or stamp with the markers?
No, I would do the styrofoam for sure. You're going to start, you do it, and you put the marker on it. That's how you get the color.
That I got. The second part where you colored in the bottom of the sponge paintbrushes. Is that part of our project what we should do, or just
you
the
can if you want. I'm making that optional. I just want to see pattern, but since I gave you these cool little things, you can use them. But I'm feeling like maybe they're a little limited, but you might be better at that than I am. Maybe a little bit of water on them. I don't know.
What if we were to cut up like a cheapo dollar store cellulose sponge into shapes to create a pattern?
Absolutely, you could do that. The reason that I did the styrofoam, Emilio, and that's a great idea, is because normally we do styrofoam, and it is such a versatile product, that I wanted you to at least experience something styrofoamy. It really makes gorgeous prints that are as sophisticated as you're going to get. And it's really the only good use of styrofoam I can think of, really. It's a terrible product because it doesn't break down in thousands of years. And I can assure you, you could wash this, let it dry, and then absolutely change the color and just do a different kind of color. But if you're attracted to playing with these, you can. But I think, Esther, do this for sure, and then use these only if you want to. How can we leave it at that?
Sounds like an idea.
Is that the plan?
Yeah, sounds good. Doesn't matter how big our stamp is.
Nope. You can make more than one stamp. You'll see in the lesson plan here, I just give you a lot of leeway, and because this is a lesson that if we were in person, while you could do this, it would look so much better if we had brayers and proper ink, and we don't. So you know, we're making do. The point is that you're going to understand how to carve into styrofoam. That's really where my head is at. And the lesson itself goes into, you know, as I say, what we normally would do. Okay, so now I'm going to pause and then I'm going to talk about our homework, unless anybody has any questions.
I was thinking if we decide to go to Blick and get a brayer and ink, can I just use like a dinner plate to sort of charge the brayer before I ink the?
It has to be absolutely flat. You could use glass,
Got it.
a pane of glass, plexiglass. I've used
What
cafeteria.
about those you know, those washable thin cutting boards? They're plastic.
It might have a texture on it.
Oh yeah, they
It has
do.
to be
Thinking about that.
smooth. You could, if you can go to Pathmark or somewhere, maybe get another tray, because you can use trays.
Oh yeah, yeah. I actually had a couple and I saved them
Okay.
as I use them as I put the watercolors in there and I blend in those.
Yeah, okay, that would work. Yeah, if you do get a brayer, let me just warn you, don't get a hard one. There are some cheaper ones that are, you know, maybe $5, $6. Make sure it's a speedball, preferably. This kind is the best, and it's a soft roller. You want a soft roller. That will give you the very best print. And as long as you don't abuse it, it'll last years and years and years and years and years. So do not buy a cheap one. There's some with wire, just like a wire handle, and they're very cheesy, but they're super hard. And you should be able to squeeze it, and there should be a little give on it. So be sure you buy the more pricey one. Okay.
Yeah, if I get one, which I think I'm going to, I'm just going to go straight to Blick. I
Yeah.
saw quickly looking on my phone, like stainless steel ones,
Stainless steel what?
brayers. Instead of a sponge, it's a like stainless steel
Well,
tube.
this isn't a sponge. This is rubber.
It's sort of like neoprene kind of like that wet.
Oh, no,
sticky.
that's not good. No, that won't. No, that'll slide around too much. Get one that is, I don't know if you can quite see this. It's
Yeah, yeah,
soft
it's clear.
rubber. It's a soft rubber one. I know the one you're talking about. It's shiny.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's hard as can be. And so with some brayers are made for permanent inks, and some brayers are made for paint. You know, ink is not paint, so it's a different kind of thing. A soft brayer, trust me, for this process. And for the next process I'm going to share tonight with 131, which is a colograph. It's the same exact thing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now I'm going to pause the recording, and then we'll talk about your homework.